Hello out there, wherever you are. As for me, we're in West Virginia, wild and wonderful, Moundsville, West Virginia, and we are here at the Moundsville Penitentiary. Old WV Penn, do some hard time this evening. I came here for the first time last year. I've always heard very good things about the place, and really was kind of blown away by the experience. It has some unique elements that I've never experienced in a haunted house before. And I've heard that a lot of the elements are new this time. So sadly, I reached out to people at WV Penn. I was like, hey, can I film some of your attraction? They told me no last year. And I was like, well, I did a review video. It did very well. Maybe you can let me film this time. But sadly, no. And I think it's logistics, to be honest with you. I think it's just the fact that there's such a labyrinth of, going around to because usually when you film, someone will go around and tell the haunt actors not to yell at the person with the camera, as they're trained to do. And I don't think it logistically could be done here unless they let everybody know, like, way in advance somehow that I was coming. I don't think it can be done that way. So, sadly, you only have my word of mouth on West Virginia Penitentiary. But we are going to get into the mix. It's WV Penn 2022, and Tom was here.
How do you like this? I'm Dan Israel, and you're watching Tom Was Here.
Okay, let's get into the review / discussion of West Virginia Penitentiary. Last year I did West Virginia Penitentiary for the first time, and was really impressed by some of the elements. Some elements I'd never seen in a haunted house before, or haunted attraction before, I guess it were. And unfortunately, they don't allow me to film. I've reached out a couple different times to them in the hopes that I would be able to, and I think that might be a logistical thing, because I don't know how, because the West Virginia Penitentiary, if you've never been, is kind of you walk through almost the entire prison. I mean, through like the bowels, through the, you walk through the guts of West Virginia Penitentiary. And I don't know, they're told they're not supposed to film, and so my guess is it would take a considerable effort to tell every scare actor that, hey, somebody's coming through with a camera, do not, like they're cool, like you can let them film. I don't know if it's that, or maybe they don't want to give all their secrets away. I have likened haunted houses to magicians in that sense. In certain cases, you don't want the person to know, want, I guess, the outside world to see all your secrets on a video, and I can certainly understand that. Although, what's funny is that in this world of social media now, you can go online and you can see a review of West Virginia Penitentiary that explains just about exactly what West Virginia Penitentiary has to offer. So I'm going to do that here. I'm just going to talk very frankly, as if I would to my friends, about my experience at West Virginia Penitentiary. So if you want to go in without knowing kind of what you're getting into, you can stop the video right here. And thanks for watching so far. But for those that kind of want to, maybe you have experienced it, and you can leave a message in the comments down below, or perhaps you haven't experienced it and you want to kind of get tipped off as to what you're getting into before you get into it, then keep watching. Now, in 2021, last year, the first year we went to West Virginia Penitentiary, we were spoiled a little bit in that sense, because they had something then that they haven't had the last two times I went. I actually went twice last year and went once this year. And what they had last year is something that I wouldn't know it was missing if I didn't experience it for myself. And that was that the first time we went last year, there was a warden character that kind of led into the lobby. So the idea is that there's a set time, you stand outside, you watch a video. Some of that I captured in the video from last year, but we were extremely late this year getting there, so I wasn't able to capture any of the video. It's the same video, just basically goes over the rules of the haunt, including some great ones like no urinating anywhere in the prison. It's an important one, and the shame of that is that happened enough that they had to make it a rule. There's the rules of like no running, no, whatever, the standard rules that every haunt seems to have, but then no urinating is a rule because this happened far too often. I'm guessing. But anywho, like I said, this happened last year. We walked in and there was a warden, kind of had like an Undertaker thing with like a duster and like a big hat. And he set the tone for what you were getting into. I mean, at one point, I talk a lot about it on the channel. I talk about immersion, and feeling like you're in a situation. If a haunt can give you that immersion, which it's, I'll put the Pepsi Challenge of West Virginia next to just about anything. When you have a former maximum security prison built directly across the street from an ancient Indian burial mound, that's about as intimidating a setting, or, if you believe in any sort of paranormal thing of a setting that you can get. So already going in, it's gonna one-up kind of the outer layer of any other haunt in the area, with the exception of others. There's other former prisons, there's other insane asylums, places that we haven't got to that I would love to get to, that have kind of that intimidating presence right from the jump. But when you go in, this guy set the tone. I mean, he was like, "You are inmates of West Virginia Penitentiary. You are here because you committed crime." And I was like, "Oh, I'm here because I committed a crime." Like, I completely forgot for just a little bit, forgot. I was like, "Who am I? Why am I here? Well, I must have did something really bad." But yeah, he set that stage that this year and the second time we went last year was not the same experience just because you missed out on that opening there. I would love if they added someone that kind of filled that tone, because that dude was legit. But in every experience, including this year's one, as soon as you walk out of the lobby, you are immersed in a world. They perp walk you. They perp walk you out of the lobby, hands over your head, single file line, and you get walked to a jail cell. And you get put in, and the gates come closed. The gates get closed up on you, and you're in there for a little while. Enough that and obviously everybody handles it kind of their own way. I can tell you how I handled it. I looked around and went, could I do a lifetime of this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I was with my niece, and she was like, "Well, it's really dark in here. Like, I can't see anything." I'm like, "What do you think prison lights out is?" When they turn out those lights, it's dark. Super dark. And that's what you're experiencing for the majority of the night before kind of the sun, comes through, or, they go lights up on you. But yeah, it's intense. For those who have not ever been in a jail cell, I can tell you, I have been to Moundsville several times now. It's not a long drive from the Pittsburgh area, and it's intense. It's intense in there. And certainly when they put you in, when you're in the dark and they put you in a jail cell and they close it up, and depending on who your character is as far as the guard, certain ones that I've experienced over the last couple times were more aggressive than others. In some cases, they'll rattle the bars and stuff, and you're like, you talk about immersion, you're in the experience at that point. You are in. And then, so then on top of it, the group that went ahead of you, they let them out, but when they put you in. And the group behind you, you see them getting perp walked and put into their own cells before they let you out. So it's it's an experience. Like as much as a haunt can kind of put you into this world, this unexpected world, West Virginia Penitentiary puts you exactly where you are, and that is in jail. So yeah, in that sense, it is for real. And so what happened, and I'm going to compare this last year to this year because there's a unique element that I've not experienced at any other haunt that West Virginia has, and it's really the talking point of the haunt experience. The first time we went last year, it was just me and my friend Todd, and they put us, it was only us two, they put us with a group of, I think it was like two girls, a guy, and a kid, like a younger kid. And so they put us in experience, and what it was that I didn't know at the time, because it didn't really exactly explain what it was that it was a gas chamber. And the idea is that you have been sentenced to death, and so then they're going to put you through the gas chamber. And so what happened is that they filed us into this very narrow corridor, and the person that was leading the group went to the wall, and the wall didn't move, and so they stopped, and so everybody else stopped, and then they kind of nudged us in the back to put us in here, and then they closed the other wall behind us. So we're against these two narrow walls, not a lot of space in between them, and then over top of us came think of it like a ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese. Like those type of play balls started dropping in at an intense rate into this little narrow area, to which at this point, they're hitting you on your head, they're hitting you on your sides, and then I noticed that it's filling up this little narrow corridor with these play balls, and it's getting higher and higher and higher, to which the girl that we didn't know on the other side just yelled out a simple, "I'm short." And it did not matter. They kept coming in to the point where they were gone. The four people that we were with were underneath these play balls, above their head. And me and my friend Todd, bigger dudes, he's bigger than I am. It was probably up to my neck, and it was up to his, maybe a little, above his shoulder. And we looked at each other, and we were like, this is unreal, that this happened. But our heads did not get covered. So then what happens is they pull out the bottom, and then the play balls come funneling out. But the idea is that you were in the gas chamber, you were sentenced to death, and this was how they made it so that you had died. It was supposed to be a literal sense of here's how you died in this gas chamber, and it was wild, and certainly a talking point. I can tell you with full authority that West Virginia Penitentiary has corrected their ball pit mistake, because when we went into the one this time, they had the same device. It was in a different location, but it was a gas chamber, and it was basically yep, you heard a voice, and I can't remember if I heard this last year, but I for sure heard it this year, where it's you were sentenced to death because of your crimes, and then a little smoke came out, and I noticed when we first walked in, I went, this narrow corridor is way higher than I remember. And I happened to foolishly tell a couple of the people I was with, my friend Matt last year, to try to get him to come. And I told my son about it, not thinking that my son would actually entertain going to this haunt at all, because he was 100% against it when I told him this. And I tried to avoid telling my niece, but right before we went there, she got tipped off about it. But these balls started coming in, and like I said, they corrected their mistake because everybody got buried. Everybody got buried. They fill up that thing, unless you're 10 feet tall, you're going under. So that's awesome. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy the experience of it going up to my neck. In fact, I thought it was funny that I didn't go under and my friend didn't go under, but that everybody else did. That was an added bonus for us. But yeah, if you're going there, you're going under. So kudos to West Virginia Penitentiary for correcting that error, because the idea is that, you want immersion in the fact that, you're going under. And my friend Matt, because I told him, which is hilarious now looking back. I went, no, you're not gonna go all the way under. I said, you're tall, you're taller. I mean, I said it'll be fine. Like, you're not gonna go under. I said only like real small people like my niece and my son are gonna go under, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to see through fine. Oh boy, when they started coming into the point where they ended it, and it was well above all of our heads, he might have temporarily had a freak out, like to the point where it's like, if you're claustrophobic, this may not be the haunt for you, but man, what an experience. It's a gimmick in a sense, but an awesome gimmick, and I love every minute of it. So same rule applies. They had us in there for a good maybe minute where we're underneath this, and you have to kind of make your, you have to determine whether you are bought in. I mean, I guess that, or if you're like, oh my god, I gotta, yeah, like if you're claustrophobic, that's a different degree. But for me, I was just like, wow, I didn't expect that. Like, I'm in here now, and you can breathe just fine, and at least I can. I have a bad nose to begin with. I'm always like nasally and stuff, but I breathe. I was able to breathe just fine, and I assume there's certain insurance aspects to this where they have to, basically be like, they wouldn't clear it if it wasn't safe in some regard. Now, to that end, did somebody ever freak out in there? Who knows? Did somebody ever have a panic attack, or maybe they had asthma or shortness of breath or whatever, and this started coming in and they had an issue? I have no idea. I can't speak for that, because every time I had, people just were like, wow, like never experienced anything like this before. But yeah, I mean, I assume there's certain logistics where they can clear out the balls pretty quickly once they pull that little gapper there, and it's, it goes, the room clears out just as quickly as it gets filled. So but yeah, I'd be curious about that. I would love to know kind of the behind the scenes and the stories in that regard, because it's amazing. So I did love that aspect of it. Then I will say, in compared to last year, this year they changed some things up, certainly from where different areas were in different places, different, there were rooms that were changed completely, there were rooms that were just about the same as they were last year, but then after you're sentenced to, or not even sentenced, after you're executed at West Virginia Penitentiary via the gas chamber, then they put you into a coffin. And that coffin goes into what appears to be a furnace, but it's actually a little cart path that goes through into the next room. But that's another unique element. I've never been put into a coffin before and pulled into another room, pulled through what looks like a furnace, because you are then dead. And the idea is, from that coffin room, then you go into hell, which hell is the then lower tier of the prison. So that is interesting in its own right. And that you can now, unlike the ball pit of doom, there is a little, what I would call the coward's way out. You can go around, there's like a little path that leads into the next room that you can follow, and then you don't have to take the coffin thing. Like, maybe they seem to think that the ball pit is not necessarily as claustrophobic as, say, a coffin, and I can certainly agree with them. And what a life-affirming, like, when they close it on you, you have to kind of realize, there's a realization maybe, and maybe I only experience it myself, where it's like, eventually that'll be real. But then they open it back up, and you know that at some point in your life, you know that that is not always going to happen for you. So that's life affirming in that sense. Like when the coffin opens up and you're like free and you hop out, there's something life affirming about that. Maybe it's just to me. Maybe it's just to me. But I do enjoy that aspect of it. And then when you go then downstairs, you fall into basically it becomes mostly like a haunted house, like any other haunted house. I mean, I'm not saying that as a knock. I'm just saying it has its own themes. It has, the Mad Doctor room. It has the, hillbilly room. It has the, basically different aspects of like clowns, mazes, all types of different stuff, large scale animatronics. There's all types of things in this lower half. And that's where it kind of like, I would have liked in each experience I went to, if it was able to follow, and I know this would be difficult, but if it was able to follow that same like prison theme. But like I said, I know there's only so many rooms, and so many ways that can go before you, before you run out of ideas. Like, it would be cool to see, like, maybe some inmates that are escaping, which they actually kind of did this year. Interestingly enough, they didn't do it last year, but they definitely did it this year, now that I'm reflecting back, where they had a scene where, like, inmates have kind of, like, taken over and, like, somehow got the guards, and ended up capturing them. So, yeah, in that sense, fair. I'll give you that. But there's also, like, an auto body shop. There's a guy that's cutting body parts and stuff around and things. So I mean, there's a lot of different themes that are going into the bottom half of West Virginia Penitentiary, and so yeah, I mean, you have to kind of like go in this sense, like, because it starts out when you're going down the stairs. It starts out where this guy's like introducing you to hell, and that there's all these different aspects of hell down here. And that kind of opens the door for the various themes that you go into. So that's helpful in that regard. But yeah, it would be nice to have maybe some more scenes that kind of follow the prison theming, because that is the bulk of what you should experience in West Virginia Penitentiary. But I understand there's only so far you can go with that before you got to start going into other stuff. So nothing too, like I said, it's mostly straightforward as far as a path and as far as haunted houses. There are a couple rooms where people stop you and do like a more of a monologue thing, and it adds to the experience because this haunt is lengthy. I mean, you're going through, and I think it's about 45, maybe 50 minutes. You are in this prison. I mean, it is one of the longer ones for sure. And by doing that, by getting all these set themes, and there's a lot of different characters in there, you don't run into a ton of dead spots, surprisingly, because there's so many different characters. And then if there's not a character, or a scare actor, they'll fill it with an animatronic or maybe a maze to get through, or a few other things to kind of work your way around before you run into someone else. So the other thing that I do like is that there's an area getting closer to the end there where you get on a boat. And keep in mind, you're in like the cafeteria of the prison, or like I don't know, I assume it's like a cafeteria or like a common area or whatever. And so the 2 times that I went last year on this boat, there was nothing lurking in the pit, which basically like fog and smoke and stuff. But this time they actually had someone in there, which was good, because it always kind of teased that, but the 2 times I went last year, they didn't have it. So it was awesome that they actually had one this year, and I thought it was really, really cool. So they definitely added to the space there for sure, and they definitely changed some things around to make it feel they definitely changed some things around to make it feel fresh and new and a new take on it, because obviously the 2 times I went last year, and apparently from what I've heard, the few years before that, it was roughly the same thing. So it was cool that they actually introduced some new things, because when you're going in and you're expecting something only to have a different result, it makes the whole thing feel fresh and new and interesting. And they certainly did that in this regard. They're definitely making improvements, but what a haunt. I'm such a big fan of this place. I really wish they would let me film. If you know someone at West Virginia Penitentiary and they're like, let this guy film this haunted house because it's awesome, I would love to go and film West Virginia Penn, because I think it's an incredible haunt. Now, I am mainly a novice as far as haunts go, especially in comparison to haunts kind of all over the country. I have only been to other than Halloween Horror Nights in Florida, which is probably the furthest I ever went for a haunt, and that was when I was very, very haunt amateur. I have been to just about every haunt in the Pittsburgh area for the most part, and then kind of branching our way through a couple in West Virginia, a couple, there's one I've only been to one in Ohio so far, and that was just that was just a few days ago. But yeah, there's different. There's a lot of different haunts out there, and I know each of them have some unique elements and things that we haven't gotten to as far as the haunt's concerned. So I will take any recommendations for haunts that you are familiar with, that you like. Maybe you like these haunts. Maybe you're like, hey, you got to check this out. This one's really, really good. And let me know your thoughts on West Virginia Penitentiary, if you've ever experienced it. I think it's an awesome one. It has some unique things, like I said, I have not seen in a haunted house, and they play into the fact that they were a former prison, and it adds to that effect for sure, especially in Immersion. In Immersion, when, as much as, it can be like, you're in the doctor's office when you're in a standard haunt, and then it can look just like a doctor's office. There can be a doctor running around. It can have charts. It can have graphs. It can have x-ray machines. But it's not as immersive as them putting you in an actual jail that's somewhat occupied in a former maximum security prison. Like, there's a certain factor of immersion that you cannot get anywhere else. So, West Virginia Penitentiary, like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And, is this a haunt that you do every year? Are there any haunts like it that you're familiar with? Let me know in the comments down below. But we love West Virginia Penitentiary. We think it's a really, really awesome haunt. Well, that'll wrap it up. West Virginia Penitentiary. Man, I do love this haunt. They changed a lot of things. I really wasn't sure, because I've heard in kind of the past that it kind of mostly stayed the same. Now, there were elements that were the same, but there were elements that were wildly different and gave it a new, fresh, unique thing. Although, going here twice last year, and kind of seeing it 2 separate nights and kind of seeing the beats, I was pleasantly surprised to see some of the things were a little bit different than last year. Some of them weren't in the place I expect. Some of them were completely different, and I had no idea what was going on and where it was going. But I loved every minute of it. I appreciate everybody that came along. We went to 3 separate haunted houses this evening. We went to Wells Township in Ohio. We went to Penitentiary in Wheeling, and closing out the night at WV Penn, and we survived it all. Those videos will all be separate, so only if you watch all my videos and then watch to the end of this video will you know that, but that's okay. That's fine. But that'll wrap it up. West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you are new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can do so. Link is in the description below. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, a Tomwashere t-shirt, you can do so at Spreadshirt, as well as links to my eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, Clubhouse, and the Pennsylvania Autograph Collectors Association. Links are in the description below. But when it comes to WV Penn, Moundsville, West Virginia, I can say that my name is Tom and I was here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Bye, everyone.